At the beginning of the movie, we see 14-year-old Roger returning to his home during summer vacation, and his mother had sent one of her maids, Sabita, to pick him up. Roger noticed Sabita's bouncing balloons and becomes quite excited, and Sita also understands his intentions, but says nothing to him. Then, as they continue to walk, both of them reach home, where Roger's entire family warmly welcomes him. Moving forward, we see that Roger's sister named Bertha, who starts watering the plants in front of Roger. Watching this, Roger's eyes are left wide open, and he starts thinking, what on earth did I just see? After that, as Roger reflects on all these things, he heads into the forest. While he was in the forest, he suddenly slips and falls into a nearby bush, where he finds the sound of a girl laughing. Then he sees that one of the maids from his house, Ursula, is in the forest with an unknown man getting intimate with him. Just then, Ursula notices Roger watching and starts smiling. Then Roger, startled, runs away from there. Later that night, after having dinner with his family, he goes to his room to sleep. Suddenly, he hears a rattling sound outside his room. He goes outside and sees that one of the maids from his house, named Helen, is at the door and playing something from behind the door. After quickly finishing her work, Helen adjusts her clothes and leaves. Meanwhile, Roger somehow suppresses his desires and goes to bed to sleep. The next morning, Bertha's sharing their secrets with each other. Just as they were talking, all the maids from the house arrive by the riverbank. So the brother and sister hide behind a tree. As all the maids are talking to each other, suddenly from the other side of the river, 3 men walk by, and all 3 of them are servants from Roger's house. Then, the 3 of them start showing the maids sitting on the other side of the river their tools. However, Ursula was no less, and she too, in excitement, shows them her balloons. All of this is happening while Roger is hiding behind a tree, watching. Then the next day, we see that Roger's older sister, Elisa, has come home with her father, and all the family members are warmly welcoming her. And then Elisa hugs everyone, but only says hi to Roger and goes inside. Roger becomes quite upset due to this discrimination, and, noticing Roger's disappointment, Bertha understands his feelings. Then she comes in and takes him to a church to cheer him up, where they both climb to the top of the roof to pray. Start listening to the prayers, and her mother, Monsi Magrat, is confessing her sins in front of the church priest, where she tells the father that she has committed a great sin. In fact, my nephew Roger come here for summer vacation, and ever since my eyes met his, I have become infatuated with him, and many times I have even imagined myself being intimate with him. Then, while hiding on the roof, Roger listens carefully to all these words, which makes him very happy. He starts thinking that there is someone in this house who thinks about him too, and he was lost in thought when suddenly he falls from the roof, causing his cover to be blown. Afterward, Margaret and the father tell Roger's mother everything about him, which makes Roger's mother very angry, and she asks her servant to bring a broomstick. Then, she hands the broomstick to Margaret and says that she should give him 10 strikes on his backside as punishment. Hearing this, Margaret uses the broomstick to give Roger 10 strikes on his backside. He begins to strike him hard. During this, Elisa's fiancé, Roland, arrives there, and seeing Roger in this state, he secretly starts laughing. After receiving the strikes, Roger's backside turns red, which is why he starts sleeping on his stomach that night. But then, he hears the sound of dishes again, so he goes outside to see what's happening. And this time, he sees that Helen is being touched from behind. However, we never find out who Mr. actually is. But this time, along with Roger, Frank is also enjoying the scene. Therefore, he starts going to Frank's room to find out about it, where Frank puts his hand in his pants. While watching the union of stars through the telescope, Frank is startled upon seeing Roger in his room and leaves his room. After he leaves, Roger also starts watching the union of the moon and stars through the telescope, and he realizes that Frank, the bastard, is even worse than him. He is more perverted, and then he finds a book of obscene stories on the table. He takes the book and leaves from there. As he is heading towards his room, he hears some sounds outside his parents' room. He hears the sounds and tries to peek inside through the keyhole, but just then Roland catches him peeking. Then Roger requests him, please don't tell my parents about this. I'll do whatever you say." Hearing this, Roland starts getting Roger to clean his car. Then in the next scene, we see that Roger was talking to his sister Elisa and Roland. When Roland tells Roger, "Look how dirty my shoes have gotten, clean them properly." But Roger refuses to do so. Then Roland, angrily, tells Roger's mother about him, saying that last night, "This pervert was peeking into your room." Hearing this, Roger's mother gets angry and tells Roger to leave the house. She says this, and then Roger, seizing the opportunity, takes the book of obscene stories and hides it with his sister Elisa. He exchanges the book, then hides outside and watches Elisa reading the book, and Elisa also reads the book. He feels ecstatic, and at the same time, Roger's desires also awaken. That's why he goes to Sula, who is in the kitchen, doing her own thing. She was working when Roger quickly grabs Ursula from behind. In fear, Ursula breaks a plate over his head, causing Roger to see stars in broad daylight, and then Ursula realizes that this is her Roger. She agrees, but just then, another maid arrives, so Roger has to flee from there. After that, we see that a postman arrives there, shouting that war has broken out. In fact, Germany has declared war on France. And upon hearing this, everyone gathers there. The next day, all the men of the village had to go to fight in the war, so Roger's family starts having a party at night, and when Roger finds out that all the men in his house are going to war, and all the women will be left alone at home, so he starts feeling quite happy inside. Then, the next morning, all the men leave for war. That's why Roger first traps Ursula in his web, but Ursula already liked Roger, so she gives him the green signal, and the two of them become intimate right there. The next day, we see Roger's Kate sitting by the riverside. Suddenly, Roger comes out of the river and, drawing Kate into conversation, begins to get intimate with her right there by the riverside. Now Roger's confidence had grown, and he plans to become intimate with all the girls in his household. Then, at night, we see that Roger's aunt, Margaret, goes to her room to sleep, but she finds that Roger is already in her room sitting there. Then Roger says, "I know you're a virgin, so I'm here to help you." At first, Margaret refuses, but after some kissing and closeness, she can't hold herself back, and the two of them become intimate right there. After this, we see Helen, who comes to the door with tea and breakfast, but this time, Mr. was missing because he had gone to fight in the war. So, with no other option, she directly goes into Roger's room. Rogers fulfill her desire and begin to get intimate with her. The next day, when Batha and Roger are sitting in the garden, Roger's gaze falls on his older sister, Elisa. Therefore, he immediately goes to her and he also traps Elisa, but Elisa first refuses to do all this, but because of reading the stories, she too is unable to control herself, and they both start getting intimate right there. After that, we see all the girls in the house line up and go to Roger's room and find themselves. After satisfying herself, she goes out. Then, after enjoying in the open for a day, Elisa tells Roger that she is pregnant. Hearing this, Roger bursts into tears, and then both of them see that Roland has actually returned home after boarding the plane. The war was over, and all the men had returned, and Roger was thinking how to get out of this, when Ursula came to him. She comes closer and says that I have also become pregnant. Then, after some time, her husband also comes. She says that I have also become pregnant. After that, Roger gets an idea, and he goes to Elisa and tells her that you please seduce Rowlett and somehow get intimate with her tonight. Then Roger goes to his lover and says that you please marry Frank because he loves you very much and will take great care of you. Then Margaret will also agree. After that, he convinces Sula also to get married with a servant. Then the next day, all three girls get married together, and no one even hears about what Roger has done. Then after a few days, Roger's summer vacation ends, and he is ready to go back to his boarding school. Just then Helen comes there and tells him that she is also pregnant, to which Roger says, "Don't worry, I will arrange a groom for you too," to which Helen says that there is no need for this. "No need, I will choose any one of the men here." Then the next morning Roger leaves for his boarding school, and with this movie ends here.